It's a pleasure to see you all. My name's Joel Riley. I do the morning show on News Radio 610 WTVN. It's my great pleasure to be here today. It was always nice to be asked to participate in a great Columbus event. And anybody who is about taking care of kids and keeping them safe is a friend of mine for sure. I want to appreciate you, say thanks for taking your time. The morning's events is one of many different child abuse and neglect prevention programs, trainings, and events and activities that have taken or will be taking place across our great state this month. Our purpose in gathering here this morning, it's not simply to raise awareness of child abuse and neglect. In fact, research has demonstrated that our past collective efforts have been successful in raising awareness all across the great Buckeye State. We all know how pervasive child abuse and neglect is and the devastating effects that it has on our kids. Most of us have seen, heard, or read the research that has shown the toxic stress from child abuse and neglect impedes even healthy brain development. We all know that effective child development results in effective economic development, so it's easy to understand why child abuse and neglect prevention is the most critical issue we can address for the long-term prosperity of our state and ultimately our nation. What's so important about today is that we remind ourselves that we should all pause and recognize that we each play a part in making our communities a better place for kids and for families. This is what this morning's Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month kickoff is all about. And it's reflected in our theme for April 2014, Pause for a Child, Protect, Report, Reflect. It's incumbent upon us that we advance from simply making people aware of child abuse and neglect to taking concrete action to prevent it. It indeed takes a community to keep children free from abuse and neglect, and it takes everyone. Everyone has a role, an active role to play in this effort, as well as a shared responsibility to support children and promote safe and stable families. An essential part of supporting children and promoting safe and stable families is the presence of places within the community where kids and parents can interact with each other in a relaxed environment that's designed to provide them with high-quality resources and support. A perfect example, it's right above us, Main Library here in Columbus, in all of its branches. The Columbus Main Library houses an extensive genealogy collection, business and technology classes, fun early education programming for kids, story time for children, and of course a fabulous collection of books and resources. I'm the proud father of a 13-year-old son. We happen to be blessed with a reader, so we spend a fair amount of time in libraries, so it's easy to talk about how great libraries are. Every time I visit a library, I'm struck by what an amazing and exciting learning environment this place truly is for kids and their families, and I can't think of a better place in Columbus to have our kickoff event than here at the Main Library. I'm so proud to be here and especially appreciate your support. Right now I'd like to introduce Kristen Rost, the Executive Director of the Ohio Children's Trust Fund. The mission of the Ohio Children's Trust Fund is to prevent child abuse and neglect through investing in strong communities, investing in healthy families, also investing in safe children. It is the Trust Fund's vision that every child will grow up nurtured by a network of strong communities and healthy families. The Trust Fund, created in 1984, it's Ohio's sole public funding source dedicated to the primary and secondary prevention of child abuse and neglect. The Trust Fund invests in prevention programs at the local level. They partner with Ohio's 88 county child abuse and child neglect prevention advisory boards, that for primary and secondary prevention, as well as other statewide programs designed to reduce child abuse and neglect. Last year, the Trust Fund invested over $4.2 million in prevention programs that served just south of 1.7 million adults and over 300,000 children throughout Ohio. Every year, the Trust Fund coordinates public awareness and advocacy efforts for April Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. Please, let's welcome Director Kristen Rost.
Yesterday, my family dressed in blue to show our support for Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. As my son was picking out what to wear and helping me pick out what my daughter should wear, he asked me, "Why blue?" "Great question, Will," I said. I thought for a moment and thought, how do I explain child abuse and neglect prevention to a 2-year-old? I explained it as I do all things to a 2-year-old. I kept it basic and simple. Child abuse and neglect prevention, in its simplest form, is offering support to families as they navigate the different stages of childhood, all which present unique challenges. Parenting is a hard job, and none of us are perfect parents. We all need help. The Ohio Children's Trust Fund recognizes that every family has its share of strengths as well as its share of challenges, and sometimes it takes an extra little help to get through the day, or even through a whole stage of child development. This is the underlying philosophy behind the Ohio Children's Trust Fund Board's funding decisions, to fund prevention programming that provides families the support they need while ensuring parents have the tools they need to be more effective and stronger parents. We have found that the child abuse and child neglect prevention programs that are most effective in producing positive outcomes are the ones that utilize a strength-based approach to working with families. The foundation of this approach is the 6 protective factors. Research shows that when parents possess these 6 protective factors, the risk for neglect and abuse diminishes and optimal outcomes for children, youth, and families are promoted. The 6 protective factors are nurturing and attachment, knowledge of parenting and child development, parental resilience, social connections, concrete support for parents, and social and emotional competence for children. This strength-based approach represents the blueprint for how the trust fund works to prevent abuse and neglect. It can also serve as a plan of action for how each of us prevent abuse and promote strong families. We can all make an effort to prevent abuse and neglect and strengthen families by pausing for a child and doing our part to protect, report, and reflect. When I hear the word protect, I immediately think of keeping my children safe, of making sure I put my infant daughter on her back to sleep, of teaching my kids to look both ways before they cross the street, and to not talk to strangers. And we do mean this. However, we also have a larger responsibility to protect the families in our community. Each of us has the power to help protect families and children through small, simple gestures. We can offer to hold a friend's new baby so they can take a nap or grab a much-needed shower. We can prepare a meal for a late working neighbor so they have more time to spend with their children in the evening. Or we can offer words of encouragement and show that there is light at the end of a tunnel for a teenager's parents. In performing these small acts, we are building and enhancing protective factors within those whom we are helping, while simultaneously diminishing the risk that the immediate challenge or stress the person is facing will escalate to a severe level of abuse and neglect. Of course, there are times when stress turns to abuse, and it is our responsibility to further protect children by reporting any abuse we see or suspect. Here in Ohio, if you suspect abuse, simply call 855-OH-CHILD, and you will be directly connected to a child welfare or law enforcement office in your county. Finally, we all can and should pause to reflect on our words, our actions, as they have a far greater impact than we often realize. We have so much influence on our children, and sometimes we don't even recognize the impact we have on them in our